OneFootball is the app that you need to cover everything related to your favourite football team and general football news. Use the OneFootball app so you're up to date with every team's transfer news, team stats, fixture lists, competitions and much more. Personalise your feed. Get alerts to the news and stories you want. Download the OneFootball app today. Your football fix is only a swipe away. Hello everyone, I'm Nini FC and this is Blue Lions TV, and today I'm bringing a news daily video discussing Antonio Conte. Now, there have been two reports surrounding him. The first comes from the Times, and you know what? I actually went to get the newspaper and it was a complete waste of money. You know why? Because literally the story only covered the back page. There was no extra information, but to be honest, you got enough of what you needed from that small article at the back page. My first impressions were, it's obvious that it's been leaked somehow. Now, I'm not saying it's coming directly from a player, it could be from a player's relative or friend or just any personnel surrounding the club. But after reading the article, the first immediate thing that I got from it was none of the players are angry. When you do read reports of the press trying to overblow things, you have to read behind the lines and look at the nuance behind it. Don't just fall into the emotion of it. Basically, what was supposedly leaked is that the players aren't necessarily happy with the training. And the reason why they're not happy is they feel that, you know, they're playing 3 games in a week, plus they were training 3 times already this week. And in their training sessions, a lot of it is physically focused and tactically focused. And of course, the players are feeling a bit fatigued, they're feeling a bit drained, they're not feeling as strong, and they feel that potentially because their bodies aren't really getting a proper rest. That's why a few players are picking up small knocks, like recently Luiz and Bakayoko with their alleged small calf strains and groin strains. And this is the reason why the likes of Conte got a hamstring, or Moses got one as well. And to be honest, I've got a tiny bit of a theory myself as to why players that come back from their international teams usually are more susceptible to injuries. And I think that's because when you're playing for your club, your body's more accustomed to that rigorous training. And when you're going to your national team, it's something completely different. So I think obviously your body needs to get rhythm of things. And I think that when you're doing one thing for so long and you do something completely different, that's when you're more susceptible to picking up knocks. But basically all the players are saying is that they like the training to maybe be reduced a tiny bit so they're not so susceptible to picking up knocks. So it's nothing too crazy. And as stated by Conte himself, he was actually looking into that and actually coming to the realization that, yeah, maybe I might have to reduce the training sessions or maybe not do as many during the week. Because of course we do have a Champions League game, so we do have extra games, and it's a more congested fixture list this season. But right at the end of this article, it was stated that the players still believe in Conte. And Conte did say in his press conference today that he dismissed all notions of there being any type of player unrest because it's just not there. So let's not be too crazy and just, you know, let our heart roll our heads, you know. But there's an even more tantalizing story that came out today from Duncan Castle, and what he's saying is Conte is basically a dead man walking, and that he probably won't even finish till the end of the season. He might be dismissed beforehand. And what he's saying is that Conte is having a massive disagreement and he's had a massive fallout with a key executive at Chelsea. Now, I know a lot of people might be thinking straight away, oh, Emenalo, because for some reason there's a lot of nonsense surrounding Emenalo, and a lot of people just don't understand his role at the club. But my immediate impressions were Conte he's had a disagreement and falling out with Marina Granovskova. Something else that was reported in this article was that Conte isn't necessarily happy with how inaccessible Roman Abramovich is. And the reason why I feel Marina has so much influence and power when it comes to decision making is that she's basically Roman's right-hand woman. Of course, this is why she's able to have more control with club matters. And it's just my own personal theory. There's nothing in the article stating that the executive Conte is having a disagreement with is Marina, but purely logically with how the club's run, with how Roman, of course he has his own businesses that he deals with, he's not going to be in London every single time. This is why he wants a right-hand person beside him, so they can basically relay all of the information around Chelsea at this moment to him. And that person is Marina, because she's the one that's able to bring in managers, does the negotiations, sets out and determines how much we're going to spend during the transfer window. She has a lot of control. So it's no surprise to me that if Conte is having a disagreement with someone, it is going to be her. Now, the alleged disagreement between Marina and Antonio Conte stems from the fact that Conte is trying to impose himself more on the club. Marina's finding it's a bit disrespectful. She's probably thinking, you know what, when we did bring you to the club and when we did sign you, you did understand the terms and conditions that you were going to face signing for Chelsea. The issues that Conte and Marina are having is that Marina has allegedly said that she feels that Conte is trying to impose himself on the club. He's trying to set demands more, he wants more control and more power. And she's probably thinking, and the executives are probably thinking, well, when we did sign you, Conte, you did understand, you knew that you were the first team coach, you're not the manager. Now, what is this control that Conte wants? Looking throughout previous articles and press conferences, we know that one is definitely in terms of transfer targets and negotiations, which I'm going to delve into deeper in this video, and I'm guessing the other one comes with the academy. As Conte did say in a previous press conference, he feels that the academy's philosophy is basically just too different from his own ideals when it comes to first team football, and that when he looks at the academy, for example, in central midfield, there's no one in the academy's midfield that could really bring into the Chelsea lineup because we play a completely different style where it's more about power, more about tackling, more about defensive work rate and basically running, compared to Chelsea's youth, which is more about dictating the possession, manipulating the ball, starting attacks in midfield, etc, which is understandable. I'm going to talk about the issues surrounding Conte and his perceived grievance with the Chelsea's player recruitment. Now, of course, we have had a terrible run of form recently. Conte is basically saying that it had nothing to do with the training. It's more about the fact that there's not enough players in the squad. The size of the squad isn't big enough. I'm guessing too, Conte probably feels that the club didn't do enough to bring in his key targets. Now, there haven't been a lot of key targets, but the two big key targets would have been Koulibaly from 2 transfer windows ago. And I do understand Conte's grievances when it comes to that side, because we just take way too long negotiating fees for players. Case in point, Danny Drinkwater. Now, we signed him for 35 million in the last day of the transfer window, right when it was nearly going to end. Now, the thing is, we found out later that on that day, we made 2 bids to bring in Drinkwater. 2 on that last final day. Now, we were negotiating with him for the past few weeks. Chelsea didn't want to pay the £35 million that Leicester wanted, but in the end, because we needed to bring in a midfield option, the club decided to pay that fee. But I'm thinking Conte would have been frustrated because it's like, I wanted this guy earlier. If you're going to spend the money anyway, you should have done it much earlier. We could have focused on other targets. So this is definitely why I feel that Marina and Conte will clash, because Marina is the one tasked with negotiating fees for players and setting out the contracts. At the same time, I do understand why Marina's hands are tied a bit, because we have to understand as fans, we can't be looking at the likes of Man City, Paris Saint-Germain and Manchester United. You know, Chelsea don't rely on Roman anymore to help us in the transfer market. We're a self-financing club, so it's understandable why Marina at times will decide to try and negotiate for players, because think about it like this, a Danny Drinkwater shouldn't be signing for 35 million. We were close to bringing in Oxlade-Chamberlain for 40 million. A player of his ability shouldn't cost anywhere near that amount, especially when he was in his final year of his contract. Looking at Alexandro and of course Koulibaly that previous window, because we left negotiations ongoing, Napoli were gradually increasing the price. Same thing that Juventus did this year, because we didn't wrap up the deal quickly. And at the same time, I do understand why Marina is a bit tight with the budget, because she's given 100% responsibility of the club's budget, so she has to manage it properly. And as I said earlier, we can't be looking at the likes of Man City, Paris Saint-Germain and Manchester United, because financially they're just on a different level. Look at the other clubs in Europe. Look at the likes of Real Madrid, Barcelona, Bayern Munich, for example. They're not spending crazy amounts of money themselves. I mean, the only reason why Barca, which even brought in Dembele for the money they did, was because they sold Neymar. Real Madrid, who have they signed this past 2-3 transfer windows for big money? No one. They've been looking at the next up-and-coming youngsters coming up from Spain and across Europe for the squad. Same thing with Bayern Munich, who have they really spent money on? They brought James Rodriguez, one of their top targets of the summer, on loan for the summer. The reason why I bring up these points is, as fans, we have to understand that football is like a business these days, especially with financial fair play. You can't just spend any amounts of money. It's not FIFA, it's not Football Manager. We have to respect and understand that football is a business and it runs like a business. At the same time, there's another clash with Conte and the board. He feels that he isn't necessarily getting all the targets that he wants. For example, during the January transfer window last summer, we bring back Nathan Ake and Masunda. Conte didn't want those players. He wanted to bring in Jonathan Biabiany and Llorente. Now, this was another clash that was coming because Conte clearly goes for more older, experienced players. Chelsea would produce a fantastic academy. They want to start to introduce some of these guys in the team. They try to enforce those youngsters on Conte so he can actually use them and see them as options. At the same time, I'm looking at the likes of Ake, Masunda. They're not awful players. They're actually very good players. Some of the best young and upcoming youngsters in Europe. I don't see how that's a negative to have them in the squad. And I feel that Conte, as I said, when he came to Chelsea, he knew what the stipulations were going to be about. Looking at other targets Conte wanted to bring in as well. Candreva, Llorente, another big one that he wanted to bring in. Oxlade-Chamberlain. In regards to Oxlade-Chamberlain, he agreed a fee, he decided to go to Liverpool in the end, and look at his performances. I was saying in my videos during the summer, he's not really amazing. He was never going to replace Moses in the team. He was there because of his tactical flexibility, but at the same time, spending 40 million on a player like Oxlade-Chamberlain is ridiculous in my opinion, and it's testament to his performances at Liverpool now. Another player, Candreva, a guy in his 30s, again, we're paying the transfer fee for him. He's going to be earning millions for the year through his wages. It doesn't make any financial sense for Chelsea to spend such money on a guy in his 30s that doesn't have much playing time left. And it was the same thing with Fernando Llorente. Again, 15 million would have cost, then a few extra million for his wages. He'll only be playing for probably a season or two before he's gone. And it's not worth it for a guy that isn't going to play as much because he'd probably be competing with Michy for their second choice sub bench. These aren't massive players that Conte wants to bring into the squad. They're just older, experienced players. And if we're really being cynical, are they really going to improve the quality of the squad? It might improve the quantity, but in terms of quality, there's no improvement. Now, Conte, in my opinion, and I think the club probably think too, with the loan army of the young players we have, you know, he has the players there for the squad depth. I mean, do the likes of Lewis Baker, Ruben Loftus-Cheek, Chalobah, Zuma and Bertrand Traore, do they have to go? Those players could have easily contributed something to this club. I'm looking at Bertrand Traore, for example. Now, to me, he was one of the most complete youngsters we had at this moment in time. He easily could have replaced Michy playing up front because he suits playing that support role, and he just fits the system perfectly, dropping deep, his link-up play, his first touch, ability to dribble past people, play people in. He suited playing a striking role that Conte wanted, but Conte dismissed him, as Conte was doing throughout, dismissing too many young players unnecessarily. And it's no surprise that a lot of them left because they're all reaching 21, 22. The manager hasn't given them any confidence that they're going to get game time or be looked into, so they had to leave. So in terms of the squad depth thing, Conte created that himself. And before people say, you know, well, you don't win anything with youngsters, I'm sorry. Spurs, when they've had to use youngsters, that right back who I forgot about, Kyle Walker-Peters, they've had to use Harry Rinks, they've been fine, they've fitted in seamlessly. It's not as if we're going to be introducing 8 youngsters into the first team, no. 1 or 2 easily are good enough to play with the first 11. So I can't accept that excuse at all. Still, Conte still was able to bring in players he wanted, such as Bakayoko, Morata, Drinkwater and Zappacosta, and Kante as well. So it's not as if he's not getting anything he wants. I just feel that he has his own ideas about how a club should be run and Chelsea have their own. But I do feel that Conte, as I keep stressing in this video, before he signed for Chelsea, he knew he was signing as a first team coach. He wasn't going to be in charge of any of the running behind the scenes. He wasn't going to have much control with everything surrounding players. And when it comes to player recruitment, him and Emanalo discussed the options that he wants in the squad. For example, if he wants a new left wing back, they're going to look at targets and they're going to pick the best ones that they want. So it's not as if Conte doesn't have a single say in the matter. But when it comes to certain players that go against the club's philosophy, for example, wanting to bring in players who are already 30, the club's point is you're only going to get a 1-year contract, so it makes no sense spending millions and millions of pounds on older guys who won't be here for, you know, in 2-3 years time. And Conte, as I keep saying too, with the youth guys we have, the young guys that are out on loan, they easily could have provided the options in the squad that we need. A lot of the guys that are left are good enough to be playing and are better options. I'm looking at Bertrand Traore. He's a better player compared to Michy, would have fit the system seamlessly. Conte saw him play, dismissed him. Boga had a good pre-season on loan, dismissed as well. If anything, I feel, this is my personal opinion, the reason why our form's been bad is not because lack of players. Yeah, we've had a few injuries, but they're coming back. As was said in this press conference, Conte will probably make a quicker recovery, and it looks like Drinkwater's going to be back soon. To me, it's a crisis if the likes of a Hazard's out long term, Luiz is out long term, Courtois is out long term. Then we can talk about an actual crisis. But to me, the squad is still good enough to have done much better in the games we played against recently, and it's up to Conte and his tactical decisions and his approach to the game. That's what's cost us. I mean, think about it like this: if Candreva and Llorente came, is that going to change the approach for those games we played against Palace, Roma, and Man City? No. Oxlade-Chamberlain, if he didn't reject signing for us and he wanted to come to Chelsea, what would he have offered in those 3 games? Nothing. It's a shame, but it probably looks like Conte will be leaving at the end of the season. It's no surprise, because the thing is, when he signed his new contract, it wasn't an extension, it was just more money. I'm surprised most people didn't really pick up on that, because you could even say maybe it's a tiny bit hypocritical of Conte. He was having a go at Costa and forced him out in a way because he felt that he wasn't committing to him and the team and he couldn't trust him. But isn't Conte doing the same thing now? Now, the real issue is, why is it that we can't attract some of the big players to Chelsea? I mean, the players that Conte didn't get, they're not big players, they're not world-class players, they're not improving the quality of the squad. It's just more experience quantity. Now, to me, I know a lot of us guys, know what the real issue is as to why we can't bring in the big names. Until Chelsea have a unifying philosophy, we're always going to have issues when managers come and go. Managers will come with their own identity, they'll change the squad, he'll leave, then we'll have to keep rebuilding, and we have to fix up soon. Why do I stress that? Because European football is going to be completely different. Now, Man City are already ahead of us so far in terms of their player recruitment, their philosophy. I mean, there's a reason why they waited so many years to bring Pep in, and Pep's got everything he needs to succeed because the club are working with him, the academy are working with him. The reason why the academy are even good is because they knew Pep was going to come and they were preparing for that. At Chelsea, we're trying to do these things, but there's no unifying philosophy, and it's all because of the board. Now, I'm making this point, European football, as I said, is going to be completely different. Why? Because the likes of your Ronaldos, Robins, Ribery's, Iniestas, Messi, Suarez's, they're in their 30s now, they're getting older. In the next 2-3 years, most of them won't be playing, some will be retired, they'll be much older. All those big clubs are going to be looking for the next big thing to replace those guys with. At Chelsea, if we think of the long term, prepare squads that are ready to challenge in the next 2-3 years, we could really dominate. But for some reason, Chelsea will always think of the short term, and we'll always continue this stupid cycle we're constantly in of managers coming, managers leaving. And at the same time, it comes down to, it's not really the manager's fault ever, because again, they have their own philosophies, they got their own ideas. But because Chelsea don't have an idea what they really want to do with the club, there's always going to be a continuous cycle with this type of nonsense. But anyway, you guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please like, comment and subscribe. I'm NiniFC. This is Blue Lions TV, signing out.